Two more women have come forward to say the actions of former Vice President Joe Biden has made them uneasy. The claims by four women in all have triggered a new conversation about what is not acceptable in the Me Too era.
I think that it's important for the Vice President and others to understand is it isn't what you intended, it's how it was received.
These women feel demeaned, and that's not okay. So if Vice President Biden does choose to run for President of the United States, I imagine this is a conversation he will be having to have with the American people.
Any sort of harassment is strictly wrong.
Do you think this qualifies as harassment?
Oh, I'll let the voters make that choice.
I think it goes to show that the times are changing and people's expectations of behavior are also changing, and I say that's to the good. Joe Biden is not a sexual predator.
This is no country for creepy old men, and it needs to stop.
Biden says, quote, "Not once, never did I believe that I acted inappropriately." CBS News contributor Jodi Kantor is one of the New York Times investigative journalists who won numerous awards and who broke the story on Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein, fueling the rise of the Me Too movement. Jodi, good morning. We should point out Harvey Weinstein currently facing charges accused of rape and other dastardly crimes. Has the reckoning gone too far?
Well, the tape that was just played was great because it showed how outsized this conversation has become about Joe Biden. And I think that's because of three things. This is drawing on three very unresolved issues. In the wake of Me Too, what are the day-to-day rules for physical engagement, even not when we're talking about sexual predation, but sort of more regular contact? Number two, when somebody makes a misstep, how do you address it? What's the form of accountability? What's the sort of form of correction? Probably the most interesting word to me that has come out of the Biden conversation is the word disqualifying. People have suggested that this is actually disqualifying for the presidency. I think that's a very controversial idea. Three, who should the Democratic nominee be for 2020? Also a very unsettled issue. And so all three of those questions, I think, are kind of converging in this debate.
Well, I think, do these allegations, though, minimize the more serious cases of assault and abuse?
Well, we just have to draw a distinction. I mean, a lot of these moments occurred in public. They occurred at events. They occurred in front of other people. It's a totally different scenario than somebody like Harvey Weinstein, who is accused of drawing women into secluded places so that he could take advantage of them.
You've seen where these conversations take place where they are done well and handled intelligently and where they are not. Is there a worse venue in which to have these kinds of sensitive conversations than a presidential campaign?
But politics is always the hardest venue. It's the most important venue because these jobs are the definition of power, but the hardest. Clinton, Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, Donald Trump, every time we have debates over over these men's conduct, they're very important, but they also get mixed with everybody's political preferences and ideas about who they want and not want, who they do and don't want to have power.
Is this a conversation about age? Because there were standards from a different generation that are now under investigation. Joe Biden obviously will be one of the older candidates running. And so is this a stalking horse also in some cases, perhaps for a conversation about age?
I think you hear people saying that openly. I mean, some critics of Biden's behavior on this count have essentially said, this is a sign that you are a dinosaur. You've already served your time in office. I want to see somebody nominated who represents a fresher face of the party.
Does it matter that Joe Biden has been in public life for 30 years, that he was the architect of the Violence Against Women Act? Does it matter that dozens of women who worked with him in the Obama administration for years in close settings say he never touched me or made me feel uncomfortable? None of this was sexual in any nature.
Susan Rice today even speaking about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd say his record on true policy issues towards women matters a great deal and is not getting enough attention, pro and con. People talk about his contribution to the criminal justice issues you're raising, and they're also very critical of his conduct in the Anita Hill case. So there are pros and cons of his record to be debated.
But the whole conversation, I have to say, Jodi, makes me uncomfortable and actually makes my teeth hurt. Have we gotten to the point that we can't have any physical contact with someone that we're trying to be friendly with, that we're trying to be sympathetic with, that we're empathizing with. The fact that someone kisses you on the back of your head or rubs you on the back, shouldn't intention and motivation matter? And to your point, it was all done publicly.
Well, we are living through a period of social change on these issues, which can feel very confusing to live through.
Very confusing.
But no less an authority than Gloria Steinem had some advice in today's paper. She said the new rule is if you want to hug somebody, especially somebody you don't know, just ask first.
Yeah, I want to know how to discuss
I know a man who was
without-
just appointed to a CEO of a major bank today who told his wife, I'm not going to have lunch with women anymore.
Well, that's sad, and that's unfair, and that's not right. I mean, I want to know how we
but
can have
that's
the...
that is the honest conversation that is happening about a backlash where men say, I'm just not even going to do it because I'm being accused of stuff that I have nothing, and so I'm just not going to even go to lunch with women anymore. Is that helpful?
No.
And also remember.
No.
I mean it. But let's be honest about that. That's an honest conversation. Have you heard that, Jodi?
I've read a lot of articles.
I've heard it.
And
That doesn't mean that
say
that man is right. That doesn't mean that that man is right. But that is true, and that is happening.
I think what we don't have a sense of is how widespread that fear really is and whether it's really hurting women. You hear it a lot. You don't hear it on the record.
We're not talking to enough men because I think that fear is widespread amongst men.
Right, but is it having real consequences in the workplace? Is it a worry or is it an action? That I think is very hard to know.
Well, something you wouldn't do in front of your wife, in front of your daughter, in front of your sister, you wouldn't have done to them, I think is a pretty good barometer. There's no need for people to be confused about how to act appropriately.
But Joe Biden is being accused of doing it in front of hundreds of people with cameras.
But also, we should remember politics is just weird. People kiss babies that they don't know. But I mean, that's funny, but politics is also just a very weird venue. So anyway, Jodi, I'm going to have to kill it there.
That really does
Thank
put it
you
in
very much.
perspective.
Jodi's like this conversation. You guys have
Jodi's
gone off
like,
the rails.
thanks, glad I came. Thank you. Oh, it's my read. Thank you, Jodi. Thank you.